Dear listeners, Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone is doing well and is healthy. Dear listeners, let's get started with our first story about Mashfiq Bai's house in the Molahat area of Bagarhat district. The incident he shared occurred in a village of Rampal Upazila in Bagarhat district. The story was shared with him by his younger brother, Sohel. The incident began with Sohel's grandfather, who experienced various tribulations, including fear and despair, particularly concerning his uncle, mother, and himself. One day, while chatting with Sohel, Mashfiq Bai asked him if he knew of any terrifying stories. Sohel had him lean in closer, and when he did, Mashfiq Bai was shocked by a strange formation on Sohel's ear. Sohel explained that behind it lay a significant story. Mashfiq Bai thought it would be great if he could share this with his listeners. Initially hesitant, Sohel eventually recounted in detail the shocking incident filled with fear and despair. The story dates back long ago when Sohel's grandfather was known as a local healer, respected for his ability to help people with various ailments. Sohel's grandfather was cautious, as many evil spirits were furious with him for reasons unbeknownst to many. In contrast, he also had some good spirits that he befriended, who would assist people. Before his death, Sohel's grandfather taught him vital lessons, hoping he would continue the healing tradition. Sohel's grandfather, Idris Ali, was courageous and never shied away from any challenge. After his father's passing, Idris Ali inherited the healer's craft and began helping others, gaining a good reputation in the area. Idris Ali cultivated a large pond to raise fish, profiting from species such as rohu and katla. However, around 1975 to 1980, he noticed the number of fish in his pond dwindling, leading to suspicions of theft. Upon discussing this with his family, they agreed to keep watch over the pond. One night, after setting a watch with his elder son, they failed to catch anyone suspicious, so they assumed the issue had resolved. A short while later, Idris Ali once again noticed a decline in the fish population. Being a healer, he believed there was a supernatural cause. His wife joined him one night to keep watch over the pond. With their son, they arrived equipped with a flashlight and a machete. While keeping watch, they heard splashes in the water. The son saw a woman in a white sari sitting by the pond, turning out to be a spirit, while Idris recognized it as potentially dangerous. Ignoring his father's warnings, the son rushed towards her, and the spirit ensnared him with her hair, dealing a fatal blow. Seeing this, Idris and his wife ran towards him, but it was too late. Idris's son died, and Idris Ali was consumed by grief and anger. He buried his son and, in his fury, resolved to seek vengeance against the spirits that had killed his son. Over the following days, he realized he needed to take action. He prepared a trap using 7 pieces of wood and a bottle, believing this would bind the spirit responsible for his son's death. After much time preparing, when the spirit returned to the pond, he began his ritual to capture the evil entity. Surprise gripped him as he saw the pieces of wood mysteriously rising from the ground and entering the bottle, where he sealed it. Idris Ali's wife objected to punishing everyone else for one spirit's crime, but he was resolute, explaining that the spirit would never escape and would suffer for what it had done. The couple set their plan in motion, leading to a long sequence of events where the family continued dealing with the aftermath of that one fateful night. Eventually, Idris Ali refused to relent, even after years of dreaming about the spirit's family pleading for its release, staying firm in his decision to ensure justice for the death of his son. Years passed, and Sohel's mother eventually got married, symbolizing how life continues despite the haunting memories of the past. At that time, many people got married at a young age, especially girls. Idris Ali also got married. He often went to a distant market on market days. After shopping, it would often get late as the roads were still unpaved. A little rain would cause mud to accumulate in the village streets. One day, after buying 3 hilsa fish and other groceries from the market, he set off for home as it was getting quite late. Due to the muddy road, he placed the fish basket down and rolled up his lungi to walk. When the sky was cloudy, the moonlight occasionally illuminated the surroundings well enough to see. While walking into his village, he realized it would take him about 8 to 15 minutes to reach home. As he walked, he came under a kadam tree. Suddenly, an unripe kadam fruit fell from the tree, landing right in front of Idris Ali. He initially thought it just happened to fall. However, when he extended his hand to the side, another kadam fruit fell in front of him. Idris Ali didn't understand what was happening. As he moved forward, yet another kadam fruit fell in front of him. This time, he became quite irritated, and his anger escalated. The kadam tree began to shake ominously, and a voice emerged from the invisible entity. "Kiras Ali, you are not the healer to fear the falling kadam fruits. You have buried our sister in the ground. I will not let you go easily. I will ruin your family." Idris Ali heard these words, but he didn't lower the basket of fish and groceries he was carrying on his head. Instead, he stooped down to pick up the 3 kadam fruits from the ground and placed them in the basket on his head. He then shouted toward the invisible being, "You are making such a fuss and threatening me, yet you possess great power. Stay here while I return home with my basket of groceries, then we will see whose strength prevails." The voice from the tree laughed menacingly and replied, "Go ahead, leave your market goods behind. Today, I will see how much resolve you have to fight with me. Do you want to challenge me? I accept." Idris Ali began walking toward home, and the entity from behind taunted him, suggesting he was missing his hilsa fish. Idris Ali did not turn back but continued onward. Upon reaching home, he called for his wife and handed her the basket. He informed her of the incident that had occurred on the way back and mentioned that he would go confront the being. His wife repeatedly tried to dissuade him. "Don't go." But Idris Ali was courageous. He was a good healer. Taking 3 kadam fruits from the basket, he set off towards the kadam tree. He warned his wife not to let anyone search for him if he didn't return by nightfall. He walked toward the kadam tree, and upon arriving, the terrifying being shouted from the tree, "Oh, healer, you truly have some courage, coming to fight me tonight. I thought you wouldn't return home." Idris Ali responded, "As long as these 3 unripe kadam fruits remain unripe, the fight continues. When they ripen and burst, then the battle will cease." Idris Ali began to use various healing techniques he had learned. There was a small pond beside the road with minimal water and mud knee-deep. The terrifying being suddenly leaped onto Idris Ali, who used all his strength to fight back. Idris Ali employed his healing knowledge to withstand the onslaught of the fierce entity, ensuring it could not harm him despite its tremendous power. The struggle continued for an extended time until the fierce spirit leaped into the pond. There, Idris Ali continued his battle. At that moment, 2 people who had been shopping were returning home and heard a rustling noise. They turned their flashlight toward the bushes by the road and saw a man completely covered in mud, apparently wrestling with something. The mud-covered figure stumbled before them, getting back up only to fall again. They called out, asking, "Who is that over there?" Idris Ali yelled back, "It's me, Idris Ali. Turn off the light and leave this place. You shouldn't linger here." The onlookers considered Idris Ali to be a healer and thought he was performing some form of healing work. They could hardly comprehend what was going on, yet they carefully retreated, complying with his request, thinking he might have been engaged in a form of healing. But Idris Ali continued his struggle. The spirit, frustrated and enraged, hissed as it fought and displayed its large claws and teeth, its entire body seeming covered in fur as they continued to clash. After hours of battling, Idris Ali, bolstered by divine intervention, managed a spowing. How did this white horse come here, and why is it licking Sohel's ears? Hearing his cries, people in the vicinity come running, but the horse continues to lick Sohel's ears. Seeing the situation getting dire, Sohel's mother rushes to him, and the horse runs away towards a betel leaf garden behind Sohel's house. When Sohel's mother reaches him, she sees that the lower part of Sohel's ear has become completely straight. Normally, the lower part of a person's ear hangs a bit, which we call the earlobe. However, the lobe of Sohel's ear has been fused completely with the jaw because of the horse licking it. His face has turned bright red with blood. Sohel's mother hugs him tightly and starts crying uncontrollably. She then remembers the demon she had seen in a dream. When Sohel's father comes home, he is informed about the incident. He reassures them by saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of this." He then attempts to create some protective charms and apply certain remedies he learned from his father-in-law, Idris Ali. Time goes by, and there are no further problems for Sohel. He is sent to school. One day, during summer, Sohel goes to school, and during lunch break he heads towards a pond next to the school. There was a large betel leaf garden beside the pond. As Sohel approaches the pond, he notices a woman sitting at one corner, doing something with her back facing him, and her front turned towards the pond. Sohel asks her, "Auntie, what are you doing by the pond?" The woman does not respond, so he repeats his question, but again there is no reply. Suddenly, the woman gets up and starts walking towards the garden, and Sohel follows her. At that moment, a teacher from the school sees that Sohel is walking towards the garden but cannot tell if someone is accompanying him. He realizes that Sohel is alone, walking towards something only Sohel can see. The teacher, along with a few students, calls out to Sohel and rushes to catch up with him. But Sohel is lost in his thoughts and doesn't hear the calls. The teacher, noticing something is wrong, sprints ahead to prevent any potential issue. When he reaches Sohel and puts his hand on him, Sohel finally comes to his senses and asks, "How did I get here?" The teacher replies, "You were walking ahead, looking at something." Sohel then explains what he saw near the pond and reveals that when he followed the woman into the garden, she suddenly stopped and turned to face him. At that moment, Sohel sees the woman's face and is horrified because there is no flesh on it. Instead, there is a faintly glowing red eye where the nose should be, and the hair on her head seems tangled and stringy. The fear intensifies as the woman gestures with her hand, beckoning him. Seeing the fright in Sohel, the teacher realizes that he needs to get him home safely. Sohel is walked back to his house. When they arrive, Sohel's mother performs traditional remedies, like giving him hot iron and washing him, to help him relax and sleep. She understands who is responsible for this incident. That night, Sohel's mother dreams of that frightening figure again. In the dream, the terrifying figure tells her, "I almost caught your child today. He barely escaped. There is still time. My sister is buried underneath your father's house. Free her, or else your family will suffer great harm, and you won't be able to recover from it." The demon ends the speech with a maniacal laugh. Sohel's mother wakes up crying, and her husband is also startled awake. He asks her what's wrong. She shares her dream, and Sohel's father reassures her, "Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Stay strong. They'll threaten us, but they can't do anything." The next day, Sohel's mother takes Sohel and his sister to her father's house and informs her mother of everything. Sohel's grandmother says, "I told your father to free that being, but he warned me never to let it go. If it ever escapes, it would destroy our entire family." This makes Sohel's mother even more anxious. After all, no mother would want her child to be harmed. Thus, the days pass. Sohel's father, who made a living in the fish trade by gathering fish from various places and selling them in the market, often brought home fish as well. Since he primarily dealt with Hilsa fish, not all of them were sold daily, leading him to keep some at home with ice to sell the next day. After a long day at the fish market, he would often return home late. One night, while returning with fish, he encountered various spirit-related disturbances, familiar possum. Like a squirrel, with its head down and legs in the air, that little dwarf was climbing down below the giant palm tree and shaking it abnormally. Seeing such a tiny figure shake such a large palm tree would hardly seem natural to anyone. In fact, it was a terrifying sight. Witnessing this, Shahir's body froze with fear, and with his heart pounding, he tried to steady himself and resumed running. After running a while, Shahir entered his village and felt a little braver. There was an old cremation ground beside the village road, where people were no longer burned, but several tall palm trees stood there. When Shahir approached the old cremation ground, his body felt heavy. As he reached the middle of the cremation ground, he suddenly saw a headless figure standing in the middle of the road, flames burning on its body. Shahir was so terrified that he thought it might be his last day alive, that he might never return home. Suddenly, the headless, burning body started laughing with a horrible noise. Although it had no head, the sound came from somewhere, but Shahir couldn't figure out what was making that terrifying laughter. Hearing that chilling sound made Shahir feel as if his heart was going to tear out of his chest. Unable to control himself any longer, Shahir screamed and collapsed unconscious. The next morning, when people were on their way to prayer, they found him lying near the old cremation ground. They recognized Shahir and hurried him back to his house. When they reached his home, they poured water on his face, and Shahir slowly regained consciousness. He recounted everything that had happened to his mother that night, and his mother realized that this was the work of the family of that cursed female spirit. After several days of prayers and holy water, Shahir was cured by the grace of God. Shahir suffered from a terrible fever for 9 days. Then one night, Shahir's mother dreamt of several frighteningly large figures telling her, "We would have buried your son alive, but for some reason we couldn't. How long do you think you can escape us? There's still time to release our sister, otherwise everyone in your family will face severe consequences. Your father is no longer alive, so who will protect you now? Think carefully about what you will do." With that, the figures disappeared. Shahir's maternal grandparents had buried that female spirit under their tin house. In 2021, a building was constructed on that spot to ensure that the spirit would never be released. During the construction of that building, Shahir's grandmother, uncle, and mother all claimed to have experienced various terrifying threats in their dreams. But despite their fears, they went ahead with the building. That cursed spirit still remains confined beneath that house, and only God knows how long she will stay that way. Shahir's maternal uncles and his family have been living under constant fear and tension, wondering when they might lose a loved one. So this is the story of Shahir's family. Even today, Shahir's grandmother cries over the tragic death of Shahir's uncle. No mother could ever forget witnessing her own child die in such a horrifying way. That cursed female spirit is still trapped under that house, and no one knows when or how she might be freed. Only God knows. Shahir's family receives threats from her kin who want to release her, keeping them in constant fear and anxiety. Dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed the story. I tried my best to tell it well from my perspective. I hope the story has managed to give you a chill. Thank you to Mashfiq Pai for sending this amazing horror story for this Eid special episode, despite his busy schedule. It was quite a long story, and writing it down must have been challenging. I know that many of you are encouraged by your love and enthusiasm, which motivates Mashfiq Pai, Hafiz Pai, and many others to keep sending such stories. Please keep encouraging them so they can keep bringing you even more terrifying stories. Dear listeners, many of you have already joined our channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe now. Don't forget to press the like button. If you want to share your thoughts about the story, you can post on our Facebook group or comment on our Facebook page. Links to both are available in the description of our videos. You can become an official member of our family by joining our Facebook group and page. Dear students, if any of you want to share a story, you can either write it or record it and send it to us. We have provided the spelling for our contact in the video description, so you can check it out. Dear listeners, now let's dive into the much-awaited stories of Hafiz Pai. Hafiz Pai usually brings us stories from Chuadanga or nearby areas, but today's first story is not from Chuadanga. It's a mysterious story from Sherpur district. This story is something different, one I haven't told or heard before. Some of you from Sherpur may have heard about this incident as it caused a lot of stir back then. The person who shared this story with Hafiz Pai is Muhammad Abdul Muttalib Antor. He is a software engineer and currently works as a trainer in an IT company, providing various IT-related training sessions. Hafiz works under the ICT ministry, and it was during one of these training sessions that he met Muhammad Abdul Muttalib Antor, who was also a listener of Hafiz's stories. Antor has a unique and strange story that he wanted to share through Hafiz Pai. So Hafiz asked him for the full story, but since some details were quite old, he couldn't recount everything precisely. We'll try our best to present the story as we received it, so let's begin. This story happened in a village in Sherpur district. The story is from before the Liberation War, and the exact date isn't known. There was a family in the village, and all its members were quite religious. The family had 2 sons, one named Hassan, about 14 or 15 years old, and the younger one named Hossein, around 8 or 9. There was a huge mango grove next to their house, where Hassan, Hossein, and the neighborhood children used to go to pick mangoes when they were in season. At the time of the incident, mango season had just begun, and the fruits were still unripe. For a few days, people started noticing a strange woman wandering in the grove. Her back was visible, but no one ever saw her face. Many people saw her from a distance as she roamed around the mango grove, but whenever someone approached to speak with her, she would disappear behind a tree. The grove was large and there were no houses nearby. Those who saw her noticed that her hair was very long, reaching down to her feet, brushing against the ground as she walked. But no one ever saw her face. Now, here's the main part of the story. One evening, Hassan and Hossein went to the grove to look for mangoes. Many children went there in the evening, hoping that the wind might knock some mangoes down. Hassan and Hossein didn't find any mangoes, so when the other kids were leaving, they asked, "Aren't you coming?" The two brothers replied, "We'll stay a little longer," hoping that if the wind blew, a mango or two might fall. So the other kids left, and Hassan and Hossein remained in the grove. That night, their parents waited and waited, but the two brothers never came home. Growing worried, the parents went to the neighbors' houses to ask if anyone had seen them. They learned from the other children that Hassan and Hossein had stayed back in the grove, hoping to find some mangoes. Their parents and some neighbors took lamps, hurricane lanterns, and torches to search the grove and the surrounding area, but they couldn't find the brothers. They searched for 1 day, then 2, then 7, and finally 10 days, but the brothers were nowhere to be found. In reality, something very strange had happened that night. A strange old woman appeared with a bunch of mangoes and approached the two brothers. The mangoes she held were ripe, despite it being unripe season, and they looked delicious. Seeing the ripe mangoes, the two brothers naturally felt tempted. The old woman gave each of them a mango, and as soon as they took a bite, they lost consciousness. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves in a small hut. The windows and doors were all open, but when they tried to leave, the strange old woman reappeared and warned them not to try to escape. The old woman would leave each day, but she always came back. Hassan and Hossein tried to run several times, but every time they found themselves back at the same hut. The brothers realized they were trapped. Two brothers try to escape all day, but no matter which way they go, they always end up near that old woman's house. They soon realize they cannot leave unless the old woman allows it. Later, in the evening, when the old woman arrives, the two brothers stop eating and begin to cry non-stop. Seeing this, the old woman finally takes pity on them and says, "All right, I won't hurt you. I'll let you go and send you back, but I can't take you there myself. The way I brought you here, I can't use the same method to take you back, and going there myself is beyond my power." The old woman explains that the only way they can leave is by using a very unusual method. "That's my only power," she says. "I can't help you leave in any other way. But remember, you are still young, so a small mistake could lead to a big disaster." The older brother then asks her to explain the method, promising to be cautious. The old woman tells them, "I will place you on a branch. Just sit on this branch. But remember, as soon as the branch gets close to the ground, you must jump off. If, for any reason, you don't jump before the branch touches the ground, it will coil around you like a python and trap you tightly. No power on earth will be able to save you from this branch because it's no ordinary branch. It's something different. Only through this branch can I send you back." The older brother agrees to the arrangement, and the old woman tells them to sleep for the night, promising to prepare everything for their journey the next evening. She assures them, "I promise I will send you back, not harm you." That night, the brothers sleep, and the next day they eat the food provided to them. At night, the old woman brings a branch. It looks like a branch from which 3 smaller branches extend in various directions, almost resembling a small tree. She instructs the brothers to sit on 2 of the branches, with the younger brother sitting in front so that if he falls asleep, the older brother can jump quickly and take him along. The old woman repeatedly warns the older brother, "Remember, this tree will fly, so keep your eyes open and watch carefully to see when it's close to the ground." The branch was quite short, perhaps only an arm's length from the ground, like a dwarf tree. That's why she insisted so many times on jumping down at the right time. But when the brothers climb onto the branch, a strange magic causes them to feel drowsy, and both fall asleep. They only wake up when they feel the branch shake, signaling that it has touched the ground. At this point, both brothers realize that they're trapped in the branch's coils. They begin to scream in fear. Meanwhile, the boy's father has a dream where he sees his two children crying out in distress within the mango grove, as if something is holding them captive. The father wakes up feeling deeply disturbed and tells his wife about the dream. They decide to go to the mango grove with a lantern and a torch. When they approach the grove, they hear their children's screams and rush towards the sound, only to find a branch tightly coiled around their sons, gradually pressing them harder into the ground. The parents scream for help, and soon the neighbors arrive, all attempting to free the boys. But no matter what they try, nothing works. The branch is resistant to even the sharpest blades, and whenever someone manages to cut a little, it mysteriously heals itself. As dawn breaks, more people gather to witness the strange event. Many recite prayers, but nothing has any effect. The boys remain trapped, and the pressure of the branch slowly intensifies. Eventually, the pressure becomes too much, and the two brothers succumb to it. Heartbroken, the parents watch as their children pass away right before their eyes. Even after their death, the mysterious branch does not release them. Eventually, their bodies become part of the soil, merging with the ground as the branch itself slowly withers and fades into the earth. In 2010, a storm caused the tree, which had grown from that branch, to be uprooted. It withered away and merged with the earth. This strange incident, reportedly occurring in an unknown village, is one of mystery and sorrow. The event that has been shared with us was originally given to Hafiz by Uncle Alamgir, a figure well known among us all due to the infamous Dalomia incident. Although the actual title was The Mysterious Prison, most people simply refer to it as the Dalomia incident, a name that has come to overshadow the original title due to its intriguing nature. Uncle Alamgir was the person who shared this story with us, and a video featuring him has already been uploaded by Hafiz Bai. This video was shot near a bamboo grove where Uncle Alamgir, a regular listener and respected figure on our channel, recounted several unique stories he has encountered, some even dating back to when he practiced as a village doctor. In fact, this story was something Uncle Alamgir had heard from another doctor, Dr. Qasim Ali, a man around 70 years old who lives in Meherpur. Known as Dr. Qasim, he often visited the village of Gaidgat in Chuadanga. Through his connection to the village, he frequently spent time in Uncle Alamgir's office. On one of these visits, as Uncle Alamgir was reading a story from our book Voice Shiharan, he encouraged Dr. Qasim to read an incident about a spirit's judgment. After reading it, Dr. Qasim shared a similar story he had heard from his grandmother, one that he claimed took place sometime between 1900 and 1930 in the village of Anandabas, Meherpur. The story he shared was about a farmer named Kausar, a 35 or 36-year-old man who grew a type of vegetable called peepul, somewhat like green chili, but with a spiny texture. One year, after Kausar planted peepul on his 2 bighas of land, he noticed an unusual rise in theft from his field. He decided to guard the crop by spending his evenings watching over the field and bringing his cows along to graze nearby. His family consisted of his wife and a young brother he had been raising like a son after their parents had passed. One night, while Kausar was keeping watch, he noticed a strange glow and heard unfamiliar sounds coming from a distant grove. Despite the eerie setting, he felt compelled to investigate. In the grove, which was surrounded by date palms, Kausar saw an unusual gathering of short, dark-complexioned people sitting on the ground, chanting something unintelligible. Their language seemed foreign, though he recognized bits of Arabic. They were not the same height as regular humans, appearing dwarfish, with beards and unkempt hair. One of them gestured for Kausar to approach. Unsure of whether these beings were people or something otherworldly, Kausar approached cautiously. They led him into a tent-like structure filled with various fruits, telling him he was a guest and should help himself to the food. They gave him a gold ring as a gift, asking him to promise not to tell anyone about them, as they feared that other villagers or spiritual practitioners might try to imprison them. Kausar felt a strange, dreamlike state come over him, as if he were moving and eating, but without full control over his body. At one point, Kauser found himself enveloped in complete darkness, as though the lights had abruptly been turned off. Adjusting to the sudden blackness, he realized he was back in the grove, with his cows calling out to him from a distance. He made his way to his field and found his 5 cows standing together, with one cow silently watching him from afar. A little way off, a cow stands in the direction Kauser Mia usually takes to reach home. The cow looks prepared to go home, while 5 other cows are calling out from a distance. Kauser Mia tries to lead the cows toward the house, but they resist moving forward. He starts hitting them, but they still refuse to go ahead. Puzzled, he wonders why his usually obedient cows won't go home. Then, suddenly, one cow begins moving quickly towards the house. After it goes a fair distance, the remaining cows also start heading that way, but there's a noticeable gap between the lone cow and the 5 others. Despite this, the 5 cows keep their distance and do not come too close to the lead cow. The previously noisy cows are now calm. Kauser Mia finally reaches home with 6 cows, tying 5 of them in the barn. However, when he tries to tie the lone cow with the others, the 5 cows start making a terrifying noise. Forced to keep it separate, he ties the lone cow to a bamboo pole in the yard, washes his hands and face, and lies down to rest. His wife and younger brother remain asleep. In the morning, Kauser Mia is awakened by his wife, who asks, "Where's the 6th cow?" He replies, "I tied it in the yard last night. Go and check." She finds only the rope in the yard, but no cow. Shocked, Kauser Mia quickly goes to check and finds only the rope, still tied to the pole, but with no cow. He concludes that the cow must have broken free and wandered off. Despite their search, the cow is nowhere to be found. Kauser Mia wonders if someone stole it, or if it strayed onto the road and was taken by someone else. Meanwhile, his wife notices a beautiful ring on his hand and asks where he got it. He explains that he found it on the road, asked around if anyone had lost it, and, since no one claimed it, he kept it, intending to return it if the owner was found. His wife, trusting him, doesn't question further, though a doubt lingers in her mind. A few days later, Kauser Mia returns to the field at night to guard the remaining cows. One night, around 11 or 12 o'clock, he notices a light in the field but decides against approaching it, sensing it's not something natural. He watches as 5 or 6 people approach him, causing the cows to start making noise and run to him. The figures signal him to come closer. Kauser Mia calms the cows and approaches the figures, recognizing one as a distant relative. Surprised to see him at such an hour, Kauser Mia asks why he's there, and the man explains he was attending a night gathering and spotted him. The man invites Kauser Mia to join them for food inside the garden. Reluctantly, Kauser Mia follows, finding people seated in rows with lotus-like leaves in front of them for food. They resemble children, but with aged faces. He joins them, noticing that, unlike him, they swallow their food without chewing. After quickly finishing his meal, he looks for his relative, who has disappeared. Leaving the garden, Kauser Mia hears his cows again and finds one cow standing far off facing the house. The cow starts walking toward the house alone. Kauser Mia tries leading the remaining 4 cows, which resist at first, but eventually follow once the lead cow goes a bit ahead. Back home, he ties the 5 cows in the barn. When he tries to add the lone cow, the other 4 cows begin making noise again, so he leaves the lone cow tied separately in the yard and goes to bed. At dawn, Kauser Mia wakes to find the cow tied in the yard missing. His wife and younger brother help search, but the cow is nowhere to be found. Kauser Mia, feeling unwell with bloody vomiting, is taken to a powerful exorcist in a neighboring village. The exorcist questions him about what he ate over the past nights, and, suspicious of his evasive answers, takes him aside and demands the full truth. Kauser Mia then confesses everything. The exorcist reveals that Kauser Mia has been trapped by a powerful evil spirit. The food he ate the second time wasn't normal meat, but a type of mountain rodent favored by mischievous dwarven spirits, and eating it had poisoned him. The lone cow he saw wasn't real, but a shape-shifting demon imitating the cow. Kauser Mia then mentions the ring, showing it to the exorcist. The exorcist instructs him to pour water over it and press it, upon which the ring crumbles like dust, confirming that it was another trick by the spirit. Kauser Mia asks for retribution, but the exorcist advises him against it, warning that dealing with these spirits can be complicated and dangerous. The healer warned, "An evil spirit has its eyes on your cows. Let it stay fixated on them. Don't let it get to you." He then brought a rope and recited various prayers and incantations over it. Afterward, he took a bottle containing a dark red liquid, resembling blood, and poured it over the entire rope. Handing it to Kausar, he said, "The demon will return, perhaps tonight or later. I've brought you here because there are no malicious spirits around, so what we discuss here will remain private." Kausar listened intently as the healer instructed. "When the demon returns, it will appear as a cow, possibly resembling one you've lost. Don't be afraid. Approach it gently, lead it to a post, and tie this rope around its neck. But under no circumstances should you hurt it, as that would bring disaster. As soon as the rope is around its neck, it will reveal its true form, and it may even submit to you. Speak calmly, demand restitution, but do not strike it," he continued. "Remember, the effect of this rope will fade with the dawn call to prayer, and it will be freed. If it's freed while still angry, it may harm you. I'm telling you, do not hit it. Do you promise?" Kausar agreed, and shortly afterward, he felt much better and returned home. Days passed, and Kausar stayed alert for the demon's return, sending his younger brother to visit relatives to avoid danger. The first night was quiet, but on the third night he heard a cow calling from outside. Recognizing what was happening, he stopped his wife from going outside, insisting he would handle it. She watched as he took the rope, which she hadn't seen before, from a hidden pouch. Sensing her suspicion, Kausar locked her inside before going out. Outside, he saw his lost cow standing peacefully in the yard. He approached it, calmly petting its head and neck, then carefully tied the rope around its neck, securing the other end to a bamboo post. Instantly, the cow let out a terrifying scream, transforming into a dwarf-like figure with ghastly long hair, sharp claws, and an old twisted face. The demon began to shout, "Take this rope off me right now!" But Kausar remained firm, demanding his lost cows. The demon, now in its true form, sneered, "Once we consume something, we never return it. Your remaining cows will be mine as well." Kausar, growing angry, struck the demon with a bamboo stick until the demon, beaten, screeched and threatened revenge. The demon warned, "Mark my words, from now on, you are my target. As long as I live, I'll seek my vengeance on you." The next morning, Kausar visited the healer, recounting the events. The healer scolded him, "I warned you not to hit it. Now it will pursue you." Though fearful, Kausar carried on with the healer's prescribed amulets and rituals, staying away from his fields at night. Years passed without any sight of the demon, and Kausar thought it had forgotten him. However, one evening as he returned from his brother's in-law's house, rain began pouring heavily, turning the roads to mud. As he walked down a deserted, muddy path near a canal, he suddenly noticed a shrouded figure lying across his path, blocking his way. Realizing he had no choice but to cross over it, Kausar felt an icy shiver as he moved forward. Suddenly, he stumbled and felt something tugging at his legs. Looking down, he saw long strands of hair wrapped around his feet, pulling him toward the canal. It was the demon, the dwarf spirit with its terrifying grin. Kausar, feeling helpless, resisted as best he could, grabbing at roots and branches along the muddy path. Finally, he managed to grasp some of the demon's hair and pulled it, causing the grip on his legs to loosen. Enraged, the demon demanded, "Give me back my hair! I won't harm you if you do." Realizing this was his chance, Kausar bargained, "Take me safely home first, and I'll give it back." The demon, desperate to retrieve its hair, agreed, escorting him to the edge of his village before vanishing. After that night, Kausar was never troubled by the demon again. He stayed close to home after dark, cautious but no longer in fear. He continued to lead a quiet life, remembering the healer's lessons, and thus avoided further encounters with the supernatural. Repent for all the harm you've caused until now, and change your ways for the better. At that moment, the dwarf jinn took an oath of allegiance to the dervish, promising, "From today, I am reformed. I will no longer cause harm to anyone. Please, guide me according to the tenets of your faith." The sage and scholar then began imparting various religious teachings to the dwarf demon. Over time, the jinn transformed completely, evolving into a righteous being. Throughout this period, the jinn never disclosed his transformation to Kausar Maya, who remained unaware of the changes. One day, the Imam informed Kausar Mia, "The dwarf jinn wishes to meet you. Do you grant him permission?" Kausar Maya responded, "Yes, I grant permission. Let him come." When the jinn appeared, Kausar Maya noticed an astonishing change. While the jinn's form remained the same, his face now had a radiant glow, far from the grotesque visage he once had. His appearance now held a serene, almost holy light, although the aging marks typical of dwarves were still present. The jinn greeted Kausar Maya respectfully and said, "Kausar Maya, I no longer wish to reclaim my hair. If you choose not to return it, I have no regrets. Though I may have lost something, Allah has blessed me with so much in return. I ask for your forgiveness for the harm I've caused you. Please forgive me for Allah's sake." Hearing this, Kausar Mia replied, "I forgive you for Allah's sake, and I will return your hair." Although the jinn no longer seemed interested in the hair, the Imam encouraged Kausar Mia to retrieve it from its safekeeping and hand it over. When the Imam handed the hair back to the dwarf jinn, he simply touched it to his head, and it appeared to bond instantly with him. Kausar Maya bid farewell, apologizing to the jinn for any harm he may have caused, which the jinn graciously forgave. This began a transformation in Kausar Maya as well, who became increasingly devout. He would go to the mosque to perform tahajjud prayers, where he occasionally met the dwarf jinn and other jinns who had also come to pray. Over time, they developed a friendly rapport that remained strong until Kausar Maya's passing. After his death, it is unknown if the jinn continued contact with Kausar Maya's family. But this remarkable turn from enmity to friendship was Allah's doing. This touching story left an impression on me, dear listeners. The frightening start of this tale had a deeply moving ending. I hope it moved you as well. Now, let's return to our Eid special broadcast, an event featuring 4 segments. In this last segment, we bring you an unusual story, and I hope it gives you a thrill. Dear listeners, as we reach the end of this year's Eid al-Adha special, we are grateful to all our contributors. Stories shared by beloved Joy Barua, Enamul Hake Abir, and new storyteller Faizan Rahman were aired on Eid night. Our chief moderator, Sumitra Roy, shared 7 stories aired the next night. This 3rd episode was initially scheduled for release the following day, but was delayed to Thursday due to technical issues, for which we sincerely apologize. We thank Allah for allowing us to present the story, albeit delayed. Your patience, as seen in your comments, is greatly appreciated. We hope you enjoy this final story provided by Hafiz Pai, based on an account he gathered years ago. In the early 1980s, a railway worker named Amir Ali was stationed at a remote location in Kushtia. His primary duties included maintaining the rail line between Kushtia and Darshana. One stormy evening, Amir Ali ventured out, equipped with a battery torch, to inspect any fallen trees on the tracks. While walking, he heard the soft cries of a kitten near the tracks. Approaching, he found a cat's lifeless body, apparently struck by the passing train, while a drenched kitten sat nearby, shivering. Moved by compassion, Amir Ali wrapped the kitten in his scarf and brought it to his room. After ensuring the kitten was safe, he returned to clear any debris on the tracks. But the little creature's sadness haunted him. Over the next 6 months, Amir Ali and the kitten developed a deep bond. He even ensured it had food daily. One night, unable to sleep, Amir Ali went outside, but to his horror he saw 2 white snake-like figures lying near the stairs. Grabbing his torch and stick, he cautiously approached and shone the light, startling the serpents. They twitched but remained in place, unable to flee. What Amir Ali did was strike the 2 snakes' heads repeatedly with his stick until they lay motionless. Afterward, the cat woke from its sleep and came to Amir Ali, meowing restlessly and pacing around. Amir Ali, using his stick, took the 2 snakes and threw them down a slope under the railway tracks. He then returned to his room, where he found the cat sitting quietly in a corner, seemingly avoiding him. Even when Amir Ali tried to approach it, the cat moved away, as if angry with him. Amir Ali, feeling a bit annoyed, locked the door and went to sleep. In the early morning, Amir Ali noticed the cat wasn't in the room when he woke up. Upon opening the door, he saw it lying just outside. As soon as he opened the door, the cat entered the room. It's worth noting that although Amir Ali kept his door closed, he usually left the window open, allowing the cat to come and go as it pleased. The day passed without incident, and after dinner that night, both Amir Ali and his cat went to sleep on the bed. In the middle of the night, Amir Ali was awakened by someone calling his name. Getting up quickly, he saw two elderly men in robes standing below the steps. Amir Ali was initially alarmed because stories of robberies and kidnappings were common in his area of Kushtia district. However, seeing the men's clothing eased his mind, and he asked them who they were and why they had come. One of the men replied, "You wouldn't recognize us. We're from the neighboring village. A girl from our community has gone missing, and as requested by her family, we organized search groups. While searching, we discovered her body under a train, torn apart by the impact, with pieces scattered in various directions. Since you're a responsible person, we came to ask for your help with the formalities needed for handling the body. We can't take her remains without informing you." So, Amir Ali agreed to accompany them. However, his cat seemed unsettled by the presence of these two men and kept making fearful sounds, suggesting it was scared. Amir Ali told the men to wait while he went inside to get dressed. Grabbing his flashlight, he found it wasn't working, even though the battery was new and had functioned fine the night before. Leaving the malfunctioning flashlight in the room, Amir Ali locked the door and joined the two men, despite the cat trying to stop him by grabbing onto his pants as if to prevent him from going with them. Amir Ali, however, left the cat inside and followed the two elderly men. Walking a short distance behind them, Amir Ali noticed that the cat had managed to escape through the window and rejoin him. Picking it up, he continued following the men. He soon realized they were heading in the opposite direction from the train station, which felt unusual, as his work quarters were located away from the station. The men led him further until they stopped at a particular spot. When Amir Ali arrived, he saw a body covered in burial cloth. As he moved the cloth to view the face, he was shocked to see a grotesque face resembling that of a pig, with open eyes and a twisted smile. Terrified, he fainted. When he regained consciousness, he felt water splashed on his face and noticed his cat was with him. However, the corpse was gone, and one of the elderly men was nearby, though his companion was missing. Amir Ali, feeling as though he had lost control over his actions, found himself following the man as he led him back toward the railway tracks. Although his senses were blurred, he felt as though he was in a different realm, but soon realized he was, in fact, on familiar ground, walking beside the tracks. After traveling a certain distance, they veered off the tracks and started descending a path shrouded in darkness. Suddenly, Amir Ali noticed two elderly men dressed in pale white robes. Despite his blurred senses, he felt compelled to walk with them, as though in a dream. As they walked, Amir Ali saw a beautiful house surrounded by flowers and fruit trees, their scent filling the air. The cat remained silent, unusually calm in his arms. Hearing cries in the distance, he realized they were approaching a house where people were grieving. The two elderly men walked toward the house's gate, leading him inside, where he saw an enormous gathering of people, each over 9 to 10 feet tall. Two bodies were laid out on biers, with mourners sobbing nearby. The elderly men moved beside the biers, and as Amir Ali approached, the crowd stepped back. One of the elders uncovered the faces of the bodies, revealing two young children, about 7 or 8 years old, whose faces were battered as if by a strong blow. Seeing the lifeless children, Amir Ali was overwhelmed with sorrow. One elder covered the children again, and after looking at him, Amir Ali finally regained full awareness of his body. The elder asked him if he recognized the children, and Amir Ali replied he did not. Then the elder uncovered the bodies again, and this time, Amir Ali saw two white snakes lying where the children's bodies had been. Immediately, he realized these were the same snakes he had struck the previous night and discarded under the railway. Looking around, Amir Ali sensed he was no longer in the earthly realm. He was surrounded by beings from another world, who all stared at him with anger. Terrified, he began to cry, and someone commanded that he be bound with iron chains. As they wrapped him in chains, the cat, who had been calm, leaped down and began meowing plaintively at the feet of the beings, as if begging them to release its master. Ignoring the cat's pleas, the beings lifted Amir Ali and took him to a garden-like graveyard near a river with massive trees nearby. After some time, an elder genie arrived, seated on a golden throne. The crowd around the genie paid him deep respect as he sat down. Addressing the crowd, the genie leader asked why Amir Ali was brought there in chains. The two elderly genies who had ensnared him explained how he had killed their two children the night before, striking them with a stick. They sought judgment from the leader, who had long taught their kind patience and kindness toward humanity. Amir Ali stood helpless, bound and surrounded by beings of another world, while the genie leader prepared to pass judgment on him. Several families of ours have been around for a long time. A banyan tree that stands a bit away from this station on the railway line has been there for 400 years. Despite this, it has never harmed anyone, nor has anyone ever reported seeing anything unusual or terrifying there. One individual lived in a room some distance from that banyan tree. The two children of our two brothers frequently went there, usually at night. On certain nights, if he had eaten meat, he would throw the bones out the window or door. By Allah's miracle, when we would pick up those bones, they would regrow their meat, just by reciting Bismillah. Our children would often take on the form of snakes and go near this man's room, hoping he would discard meat bones, as we all knew he was a kind-hearted person. Our children had on occasion eaten food there. In the late hours of the night, our two brothers' children were so exhausted that they fell asleep in snake form near his room. When the man emerged at an odd hour and, mistaking them for snakes, struck them severely with a stick, killing them. The two snakes were white, which should have been unusual enough for the man to recognize them as something different. The man, though learned, did not seem so in his actions that night. We began searching for our children when they did not return at the expected time. Starting near the man's room, where they frequently visited in search of food, we found blood below his room, which signaled something terrible had happened. Eventually, we found the children's bodies in a nearby forest, with the stick used to strike them lying close by. Recognizing the stick as one he regularly carried at night, we knew this man had killed our children. To ensure certainty, we sent a strong jinn brother who could take human form, even during the day. He skillfully conversed with Amir Ali, who unknowingly admitted he had killed two snakes the previous night. Confirming the killing, the jinn brother returned to inform us. Though Amir Ali had 3 children of his own, whom we could have killed in retaliation, our chief had taught us restraint. So, using magic to instill fear, we brought Amir Ali here for your judgment to administer appropriate punishment. Our jinn chief then questioned Amir Ali, who admitted, "Everything they say is true, but I mistook the 2 jinn children for snakes. I would never knowingly harm the child of a jinn. Since I killed your children, I am guilty and accept any punishment, but please spare my family, as they have committed no wrongdoing. I accept whatever punishment you choose, but since I was unaware, I ask that no iron shackles be placed on my body." The jinn chief accepted his plea and sentenced him to 17 years. He would be confined to a mountain prison at night and, during the day, tasked with tending a flock resembling sheep, belonging to the family of the slain jinn children. The jinn chief told him, "You should be sentenced to death or life imprisonment, especially since the sight of 2 white snakes did not spark caution in you. This shows your lack of wisdom. Had you been older, I would have given you the death sentence, but given your youth, this punishment is deemed sufficient." Amir Ali accepted his sentence. At this moment, a kitten that had been with him walked over to the jinn chief, rubbing against his legs, as if pleading not to punish Amir Ali. The chief then ordered the kitten be taken to Amir Ali's home, but the kitten leapt back into his arms, refusing to go. Eventually, Amir Ali asked to keep the kitten and promised to take good care of it. The chief agreed. After covering the graves of the 2 jinn children, Amir Ali was taken to a dark mountain prison where he spent 17 months. At night, he stayed in the prison, and during the day, he herded about 50 sheep-like creatures. His love for the kitten remained, treating it as his child, and other jinn began to soften, seeing his bond with the kitten. After 17 months, the kitten passed away, by then grown. Heartbroken, Amir Ali asked the jinn to bury it under a jackfruit tree behind his house. The jinn honored his request, burying the kitten there. Amir Ali, grief-stricken, became weak and ate little, but continued to fulfill his duties. The jinn elders noticed his pain and compassion and informed the two families of the slain children, sharing that Amir Ali had genuinely grieved the loss and was a good-hearted person. Moved, the families forgave Amir Ali and asked the jinn chief to release him. The chief, pleased with their compassion, summoned Amir Ali and informed him he was forgiven. Released, Amir Ali returned home, and though his loved ones rejoiced at his return, many questions remained. He shared his story, quit his job, and became devout, advising against needless harm to animals. The storyteller Salim once met Amir Ali in 2007, who was in good health then, but his current status is unknown. To listeners, please remember, harming creatures for pleasure brings curses. We must refrain from harming animals or birds without reason. The Prophet PBUH loved cats. Hence, we should show love not just to cats, but to all animals. This tale teaches compassion and respect for all creatures.